Today felt like a really important focus because of the state of our environments are pretty gnarly, some of them. And it feels really important that we amplify the opposite, which is a collaborative state of being. And so what I would like to invite you to do, and I want to say this out the gate, I want you to look for the in-between today. The focus is all about the spaces between. Because the focus today is really about amplifying collaboration, which is inherently the amplification of integration. We're going to do a go around to introduce ourselves in just a moment. And in the go around, I want us to think about where we are on a continuum of feeling secure versus feeling insecure. And now when I say that, we're not going to work with the binary of I feel fully secure, I feel fully insecure, because we're typically not in any of those extreme full states. Sometimes we are, but we're typically not. Typically, there's some parts of us that feel secure, and there's some parts of us that don't. Typically, there's some parts of us that feel a bit insecure. Some of you are here for the first time. Some of you are here for the second time. New group dynamic. Some of you have other things going on in life that are probably working us a bit, right? Kelsey, I see that smile. And so I want us to think about this as a continuum. And we're going to use the continuum of the moon phases to describe where we are. Because the moon, while it's always technically full, we don't wake up one day and go, oh, it's a new moon now, when yesterday it was full. It's a gradual transit. The same thing happens with us. The same thing happens with the nervous system. We gradually transit. We're also in a gradual transition all the time. Very rarely are we in this hard fixed state. And so we're going to catch this moment. Where are we right now? And I want us to think if we are in full-blown insecurity, which some of you may feel that right now, we're going to call that the full moon. Full-blown insecurity, full moon. Full-blown secure, new moon. You may be in a crescent that's waxing. You may be in a neutral state. That's a half moon. You may be a little more in a insecure than secure place. So you're almost full, but not quite. You're a little over a half moon. So secure, new moon. Insecure, full moon. Now I want you to think where you are in your moon phase. Ironically, it may tie to your cycle. I don't know. That's possible. So I want us to think about where we are in our phase of security to insecurity in that continuum. I'm Victoria, as everyone knows. I am here in the Santa Cruz Mountains in Watsonville, and I'm over the edge of a half moon, more towards full for sure. I loved hearing that if we go into different sectors of ourselves, all of those sectors have different moons. It's like Jupiter, right? How many moons does Jupiter have, right? It's like we all have many moons that we can tune into. And it's also interesting to feel that in just 20 minutes, we've felt a shift. Also interesting to feel that as we tune into group dynamics, and we're not just with ourselves, but we're tuning into each other, that causes some fluctuation. And Nancy, you brought in, I'm in my heart space. Oftentimes, when I tune into my heart space, it'll shift something. And it could go in either direction, depending, right? But it'll shift something. Shauna, you mentioned quick shifts. Quick shifts. And how difficult that could be, actually, even though sometimes we want a quick shift. But think about how jarring that might be. I go from one to the other, one to the other. There's a lot of energy to shift and fluctuate that wide. And you brought in social media, which brings us into tuning into the many, society. I was chatting with someone recently, another doctor friend of mine, and she has a clinic, and she was telling me that the bodies that she's been interacting with, it feels so different than during COVID. During COVID, people felt unsafe, which is different from insecure. During COVID, our health system, right, the moon associated with our health, was really rocked. And a lot of people did not feel safe anywhere except their homes, but in their homes, they felt imprisoned, right? Which could bring in security issues in a prison for sure. But today's time, what she was noticing, and I've noticed this too, is that we've shifted from safe, unsafe as a society to more secure, insecure. Because the systems of security, they're not about our physical safety as much as they are about the systems that protect us societally. And right now, societally, things feel pretty insecure. If we look at the systems, they're all in massive change, massive cuts, massive layoffs, massive, right? I don't want to list all of the things and put us into full moon, but we all know the things that are happening. They affect every single system. Every single system. So if our systems are insecure and we're all functioning in these insecure systems, what do you think that's doing to our nervous systems? And if we are in insecurity, we're in a fragmented state. Fragmentation means that there's something that's way more prevalent that's sucking our energy than other parts of ourselves. And the fragmentation means parts of ourselves are getting cut off. We can't even access them. And if we are feeling and aware, and all of us are, because we're living and breathing and we're in and out of the world, this fragmentation, interpersonally, it's creating a lot of competition. A lot of competition in our relationship dynamics. You know, anytime there's any kind of anything, what do we see in the stores? Everyone's racing to get toilet paper, right? We noticed that during COVID too, but the competition gets stirred up. So the competition gets stirred up, whether we're in insecurity or full-blown danger, right? We go into competitive systems. These are fragmented states, not integrated ones. And it's why today I said we have to practice collaboration. We have to practice noticing the in-between. We have to practice feeling into where we are in that continuum. Because if we can notice where we are in the continuum, we're activating so many different parts of the brain. We're aware of our emotion. We're aware of our logic. We're quantifying. We're qualifying. All of these parts of us have to work together to make that assessment. But when there's insecurity happening, most of the time, we fluctuate into a generic state. And what I mean by a generic state is we over-index on some label that isn't actually accurate. So I'll tell you a story to explain that. I'm working with this man who's in a marriage with an abusive man. It's a dangerous situation, not necessarily just an insecure one. And he said to me in session this week, he said, Victoria, for the first time, I felt safe talking to him because I was able to talk from an empowered position. I said, that's wonderful. And we're not going to use that generic label of you were speaking and you felt safe. Because if you were speaking to your grandmother and there were puppy dogs around you, you would actually feel safe. Speaking to an abuser from an empowered place, that's not safe. There's more safety present. You're collaborating with more of you. But if we're using that label of I am safe, then we're fragmenting from a certain part of us. And we're conditioning in the wrong things. And the next relationship that man gets into, if we didn't catch that moment, he might get into a relationship that's a little more safe, but not actual safety. And I said to this man, when I left my abusive relationship, it probably took me 2 years for my body to actually return to safety. 2 years. I slept curled up, furled up for a very long time. Because it takes time for us to unwind. It takes time for us to really access these collaborative systems. It takes time for us to move through. And it's very important that we get more nuanced about where we are and what we can perceive. The focus on the in-between. If we're talking about this in-between and this focus on this in-between and collaboration, we're talking about two opposing points and putting them in relationship with each other. And when we put those in relationship with each other, there's this emergence of a third entity. Something grows from the relationship. If we swing from one to the other, we may miss opportunity for this whole other dimension to come into presence. And so, like with the example of this man, giving him something to anchor on. Oh, that was more safe, but it wasn't fully safe. Where have I been fully safe? Where have I felt full collaboration? And the relationship of that memory could then come into play and allow him to feel more possibility, actually, than the flattenness of, oh no, that was safe. No, it wasn't. And so we want to catch as much nuance as we can, and we want to be looking at these continuums, the in-betweens. What happens in the space between? And so I want us to practice something together and play with something together, because this whole session today, we're really going to be playing with noticing the in-between spaces. If we go back to the original little breath work session that we did to enter us into this, the in-between could have been observed as between the breath, right? That pause. That could be seen as an in-between space. If we go into the memory of that breathwork practice, the in-between could have also been all of the breaths, the counts that it took us to get our chin to tuck into our chest. Between 1 and 5 is another in-between. Between chin fully tucked and chin fully extended, all of that range is in between. I'm getting us into the consciousness of paying attention to all of the transiting that we're doing. If we're just paying attention to here, we're missing out on opportunity and losing the integration. The integration puts us into balance. If we go from here to here, we start to feel imbalanced. Even though so much of us wants, when we're feeling very uncomfortable, to get straight to comfort. But it's gradual. And oftentimes when we're seeking more comfort, if we start to catch the in-between, we'll start to notice, I'm getting more comfortable. Or I'm getting more uncomfortable. I could catch it and have choice. So that all of a sudden we're not fully uncomfortable, fully insecure, and now we have a lot of work to do to get back to security, right? So it's noticing. If we can notice the in-between, we can catch it. If we can notice the in-between, we're in a more integrated brain state. And in a more integrated brain state, this next layer that I'm bringing in is we have choice. Choices happen when we are in integration, when we're noticing the nuance, when we're not overgeneralizing. The overgeneralizing fragments us off.